From your hometown news leader, this is WTVY News 4 This Morning.
Coming up on News 4 this morning, a single vehicle crash sends one person to the hospital and leaves another trapped inside the vehicle. Plus, Enterprise State Community College remains on high alert after Tuesday's attempted carjacking and abduction. These are some of the top stories for August 25th, 2011. Thanks for waking up with us this Thursday morning. I'm Gina Patici.
And I'm Martha Spencer.
And we are one day closer to the weekend.
We are getting there, and we are getting also closer to Hurricane Irene becoming a direct impact on the United States. There's already hurricane watches and tropical storm watches up from South Carolina into North Carolina, and that's the closest brush that we're going to see until the storm reaches the Northeast over the weekend. But again, South Carolina is under a tropical storm watch, North Carolina under a hurricane watch, which means that tropical storm and hurricane force conditions are imminent within 48 hours. Also, high surf advisories from South Florida all the way up the East Coast because they're going to be seeing 5 to 7 foot waves, high wind, and strong rip currents. But back closer to home, we're looking at a very hot day. In fact, temperatures are going to be near record highs the next few days. We don't expect to hit the triple digits, but certainly you'll be saying to yourself, it feels mighty warm for late August. Again, temperatures have been consistently in the middle 90s. Here's a look at Hurricane Irene. And Hurricane Irene is still a Category 3 storm, and it will continue to be so until it reaches cooler water. And you can see that it's moving right through the islands pretty easily. Should develop another eye again today as we see it brush within about 200 miles. I'm thinking it's going to brush by Florida within 150 miles over the next 24 hours. Here's the path it's projected to take. Notice it shows it weakening to a Hurricane 2, although it could be as strong as a Category 4 later on in the weekend. Once it hits those cooler water temperatures up around North Carolina to the Northeast, where it's below in the 80s, that's where it's going to start to weaken, but still could be one of the most significant storms we see in the Northeast over the past 25 years. Closer to home, clear conditions today, really little rainfall over the next few days. It's going to stay unusually hot. Temperatures right now are in the mid 70s, and we're going to continue with these mornings in the mid 70s. For today, we should be right around 96 degrees, full sunshine again today. Make sure you're staying hydrated. Quiet but hot weather closer to home. Gina?
Shortly after 10:30 last night, a driver lost control of the car and hit two other cars before flipping over. Witnesses say the driver was ejected from the car. The crash happened on a side road just outside of Club Imagination in Dothan. There's no word yet on the extent of the injuries both the driver and passenger sustained. Dothan police and fire departments were on the scene of the crash. Prime locations for commercial businesses are limited in Dothan, making many people wonder why some desirable buildings are empty. When taking over the lease of a vacant building, the type of business and parking accommodations are just two. There are two things to consider.
They're not off the hook just because they're not operating there. It just may be more economical for them to pay for that space than it is to fully operate and pay payroll.
And the president of the Dothan Area Chamber of Commerce says more businesses are looking at Dothan. Enterprise State Community College remains on high alert after Tuesday's attempted carjacking and abduction. Investigators say a female student was parked near the administration building when an unknown black male tried to take her vehicle by force. When the victim fought back, the suspect fled in a black Dodge Dakota pickup with silver stripes. He's described as being in his late 30s, standing between 6 foot and 6'2", and weighing around 200 pounds. A crash between a school bus and a car in North Alabama killed one person yesterday morning. 17-year-old Casey Hearn died after he crossed the center lane and hit the school bus head-on. The bus driver was able to steer off the road and into an embankment before losing consciousness. Around 40 students on the bus went to the medical center in Columbus for minor injuries. Two former Florida daycare workers that were responsible for a toddler's death won't serve any jail time. Amanda Inman and Petra Rodriguez Perez admitted to leaving the 2-year-old in the daycare van for hours last summer. They each received 10 years probation and 200 hours of community service. Neither woman can ever work with children in the future. A Florida mother accused of trying to sell her son in Florida says her 5-year-old is everything to her. Jessica Mickles is being held in the Pinellas County Jail for trying to sell her son to a couple for $2,000.
The only deal that I had with them was they owed me $200. They were bringing me the $200. I would never get rid of my son. My son's everything that I live for.
And Mickles is being held on a $10,000 bond. Both sides in the federal bingo corruption case want the retrial to be delayed. Defendants and prosecutors say they need more time to prepare. Presiding Judge Myron Thompson will hear arguments about postponing the retrial today. He will also hear arguments about whether to split the remaining defendants into 3 groups for retrials. That hearing is scheduled for 11 o'clock this morning. And we will be in Montgomery for the ruling and posting updates from the courtroom to our web channel, WTVY.com. Just click on our live blog. Well, Bama Jam did not happen this summer, but for those of you who bought tickets in advance, there's good news. Event organizers say advance ticket holders will receive a complete refund and get a 2-for-1 coupon for the next Bama Jam concert. All you have to do is mail your receipt, a copy of your ticket, and a return address to Bama Jam at the address on your screen, which is P.O. Box 311987, and that's in Enterprise, Alabama 36331. And that address is in the For More Information section of our web channel as well. Promoter Ronnie Gilly says that he hopes to see Bama Jam return in 2012. Alabama's tough new immigration law is set to go into effect next month, but so far many of the law enforcement agencies expected to enforce it have received no training. News 4's Bethany Gillis spoke with local police and sheriff's departments, and they say they're just waiting to see what happens.
Training has been set up. I'm not sure the dates, when it's going to be yet, but they are setting up some training with the Attorney General's office to give us some guidance. And the reason we need some guidance on enforcing this law is this is totally different from any other law that's been enacted in the state of Alabama. It's nothing to do with theft or robbery or DUI, the normal laws that we get passed.
The new Alabama immigration law would require intensive training of officers on how to handle, question, and detain illegal immigrants. But law enforcement officials say no changes have been made yet.
We have seen times where at the last minute something that was scheduled to pass did not, or vice versa. So typically we will wait for changing in legislation to be handed down from the judicial system.
House Bill 56 was created to protect Alabama residents from losing jobs to illegal immigrants. However, training for the new bill could be costly and may take away too much manpower from local law enforcement.
We don't hardly have enough people to enforce the laws we currently have on the books. We've seen a 13% reduction in our budget over the last 2 years. We're stretched very thin to get done what we do get done.
Sheriff Hughes says when it comes down to it, the safety of the community is his #1 priority.
It is going to put a burden on us, and I'm sure people are going to be calling in, more and more with information about illegal immigrants and all. But we got to kind of prioritize our calls, and we got to answer those calls for service, and we're just going to continue to do the best job we can with the personnel that we have.
Bethany Gillis, WTVY News 4.
Chief U.S. District Court Judge Sharon Lovelace Blackburn is considering arguments in the request to temporarily stop the law from going into effect on September 1st. Here's what's coming up on WTVY News 4 this morning.
I'm Alexis Christoforous. Stocks continue their winning streak. Gold loses some of its luster, and Burger King gets healthier. All that coming up in your CBS Money Watch.
The Auburn football team could be one of the youngest in the land this season. Coming up, we'll show you what head coach Gene Chizik has to say about his young team. Stick around.
You're watching WTVY News 4, your hometown news leader. From your hometown news leader, this is WTVY News 4 this morning.
Coming up on News 4 this morning, a fire rips through a Cottonwood video store. Plus, another family loses their home after an early morning blaze. These are some of the top stories for August 26th, 2011. Thanks for waking up with us, and happy Friday morning. I'm Gina Petici.
And I'm Martha Spencer.
Lots of action with this hurricane.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be affecting a lot of the country. In fact, up to 65 million people could have an effect from this storm. Let's go to TrueView and show you Hurricane Irene. It's currently been downgraded to a Category 2, but do not think that that's going to be the end of it. It is actually expected to re-intensify. The storm is just parallel to Florida right now, right around Daytona. But again, outer bands are now pushing into Florida and South Carolina. It is expected to strengthen as it moves towards North Carolina by tomorrow, and looks like late evening into Saturday, and again into the weekend. We're expecting it to be affecting New York City potentially as a Category 1. Let's go to the headlines for today. We've got watches and warnings up across the East Coast. We've got hurricane warnings from North Carolina to New Jersey, already seeing feeder bands of rain coming up the entire East Coast, but the winds have yet to really affect the area. Closer to home, things remain quite calm. In fact, our weather is going to be benefiting from this storm. We'll explain how in just a minute. But again, that's our headlines for today. Here's the storm. Look how big it is moving up the East Coast, over 700 miles wide with its cloud shield. And here's what it's expected to do. By Monday, 1 a.m., should be north of Boston and continues to move right in a direct path towards New York City, which is not good news. What you see here is water vapor imagery. Now, this storm is pulling a lot of moisture and a lot of humidity off the United States and pushing in drier air for us. So it's actually going to be benefiting our weather into the weekend and giving us a little lower humidity. It's 74 degrees this morning. We're looking at mainly clear skies. We'll see a little bit of cloud cover today, but overall, hot and dry is the forecast, and that's the way it's going to stay through the weekend. We'll keep all eyes on Irene, and we'll talk more updates coming up.
Okay, thanks, Martha. Fires have been sparking up a lot lately in the Wiregrass, and the most recent was in Cottonwood. News 4's Deanna Bettineschi was at the scene to see what the blaze took with it in its fury.
Charred gravel and downed power lines gave neighbors a scene they couldn't take their eyes off of. A fire blazed through Bearland Video Store in Cottonwood, leaving nothing but the frame of the building standing.
And the previous mayor, that was mayor for 24 years, he was the owner of the building and all, and so, you know, we're sorry for his losses and feel for his family in this.
Firefighters from Cottonwood, Dothan, Hodgesville, and Lovetown assisted in putting out the blaze. When they arrived, all they could see were flames spitting out of the windows of Bearland. However, with quick action from firefighters, a building attached to the video store got lucky.
Puggy's Diner, which is the building right next to it, it was a double wall building, and thanks to the Cottonwood Fire Department and Lovetown and Dothan has come in, and we really appreciate those guys helping put it out, and they saved this out. I think they got a little smoke in there, but that was about it.
The initial call for the fire came in around 8:10 p.m., and about an hour later, firefighters had the blaze more than 90% contained. All that remain now are the outer walls of the building and the memory of how this business was a landmark for the community. Deanna Bettineschi, WTVY News 4.
Firefighters are still investigating what could have caused this fire. An Ashford family will be returning home to find their house gone after an early morning blaze. When firefighters reached the house on Grimsley Street, much of it was already destroyed. Yesterday, neighbors watched from the sidelines, hoping the family was still alive.
My neighbor knocked on the door and said my neighbor's house was on fire. And I got up and went out there and looked and saw the fire coming from the southeast side of the house. And when I saw that, I was hoping they wasn't in there because the car was in the yard. And we all were praying that, they were safe.
The family rented the home and they did not have renter's insurance. Meanwhile, a Dothan family is picking up the pieces after a fire damaged their home yesterday afternoon. Around 1 o'clock, firefighters got called to a house on Geiger Road. They had the fire under control within 15 minutes, leading them to believe the home is not a complete loss.
Our crews, the men and women of the Dothan Fire Department, did an excellent job of knocking this fire down and containing it to where it was. Particularly considering there was no one home at the time of the fire. This is kind of a secluded area, so it took a while before passersby came by or neighbors noticed it and reported it to 911.
And the cause of that fire is still under investigation. Here's what's coming up on WTVY News 4 this morning.
I'm Alexis Christoforous. Stocks snap a recent winning streak. All eyes are on a speech by Fed Chief Bernanke, and oil traders brace for Hurricane Irene. That and more in your CBS Money Watch.
The high school football regular season began last night. 8 area teams in action, 4 big games. We'll have highlights and scores coming up in sports.